Okay, so I wanted to do this little video just on some random stuff because I've received quite a few emails actually from people who kind of like it when I just digress and I go off into my own little tangents and my own little thoughts on these videos. So I thought I'd do a video actually of me just hitting record and kind of saying what comes into my head. Obviously all to do with Dark Night of the Soul, your own spiritual awakening, maybe some of my beliefs and the way that I see how the system fails us and why we might feel like we're stuck in the dark night of the soul and stuff like that. But one of the things that just kind of dawned on me as I hit record on this was the self-doubt that I felt of why am I actually doing this video like spontaneously with nothing there. And part of the reason I kind of doubted myself to do it, that I would actually say anything of interest, is because that's where the system leads us to believe in ourselves, is that we're not actually capable of doing much. Now, that sounds a little bit far-fetched, and until you start to realise that the whole way the system is designed for us is that we pay attention to someone else. Whether we're trying to aspire to be like our peers or be better than our peers or to hit a certain grade from, I don't even know how the grade system works, from F to A's to then going on to university, it all depends on the examination of someone else of us. Now, in school terms, this is where I think it fails. In school terms, we kind of take this as though this is just a normal part of the process that we all should go through. But all it's actually doing is programming us to think that we need other people's validation before we do anything. Now, I'm not saying kids shouldn't go to school and don't get an education. That's not what I'm saying at all. But it's the subliminal messages that go on in the education system that I think is why a lot of us struggle and why a lot of us later on in life hit the dark night of the soul or have a spiritual awakening and we see it for all it is and all it was and all the nonsense that it put into us. And all it really done was crush us as individuals and crush our creativity in life. Because when things are constantly put in front of you, when things are constantly provided for you, both in terms of materials, say from parents or grandparents or whatever, if you've had your life laid out for you, how creative do you actually need to be for yourself? And although the schooling system or the education system is a little bit different from that, it's still something that's there that we have to go through. So therefore, it's provided to us. So what it does is it gives us this, these are my opinions, by the way, and this is the effect it had on me, but it prevents us from using our own creativity. Now, that can be disguised because sometimes in lessons, we are told to use our creativity. However, within the lesson, we have to use that creativity within a boundary of some type. And so all these things, I think, are what subliminally go on into our subconscious, that it just tells us we all need to be validated or we all need some approval. And the other thing that comes off the back of that is don't step out of line. Don't get outside your box. And it's a fascinating subject when you go deep into it. And why I'm putting this little bit in place first is because I do want to then move forward to my views on why sometimes I think it's hard to let go of the dark night of the soul when we find ourselves in there. Now, if you take into account everything I've just said, being in the dark night of the soul, which is the stripping of our ego and the complete rip out of everything we've believed in and generational beliefs, and then we start to see our true self, there's still going to be a part of us that is waiting for validation of us being in the dark night of the soul. I'm going to try and explain that again. I'm not sure I've covered that well. So, as always, I kind of feel like that for some of us, when we're in the dark night of the soul, in order for us to progress, and what I mean by progress is not progress in life. I never took materials. Very rarely do I take materials. Progress in life for me means what goes on here and with ourselves as one unit within the universe, or the universe itself. Because remember, we are the universe is us. And it's just, that's just fact. That's not woo-woo, it's not silly talk, it's fact. That's how it is. So I will always talk in terms of our consciousness and stuff like that. It very rarely means material. But in order for us to progress in the dark night of the soul and try and find our way out of it, perhaps for some of us, and it's a perhaps for some of us, we're almost waiting for validation from someone else to say we're doing it right. We're going through the dark night of the soul correctly. Our spiritual awakening was actually a spiritual awakening, and it's not something I've made up in my head. And I think some of that is why, maybe, how about this? Maybe that's why a lot of us watch videos like this of people who have had dark night of the souls or are in it, because we're kind of searching for a little bit of validation for us, the viewer, to move on with their dark night of the soul. I know I was one of them, because, and that's wonderful to do that. It's a wonderfulness, because you're searching for other people that have done similar or have gone through something, and you're trying to find inspiration from it, or reassurance from it, or just little tips on how to move forward. In my opinion, that's what makes the world go round. We are all connected as one species and one being, but we very seldom embracing that. We very seldom celebrate that we are all connected. And because of the system, we often feel this need to compete with one another, to compare ourselves to someone else, that we're not in someone else's standard, we're not at someone else's level. We need the validation from someone to say, hey, do you know what? You are good at that. You should carry on. And it's a nonsense, really. It's nice to receive those things. It's nice to get validation from people we love or respect and that stuff. But it's not an essential. What's an essential is the self-belief. And this is what you'll find during the dark night of the soul. As your ego gets stripped away, which was created for you, and your mind-made self, as that gets all ripped away, you'll start seeing your own inner strengths. You'll start having belief in yourself. And when that starts happening, you really see the world for as it is and as you are. And then you can really start making sense of these things that people sometimes say of like, my mind's gone blank right at the wrong point. We don't need an education to move forward, or I can't think of anything else, but I'm sure you guys can grasp what I'm saying. I can't think of any other analogies. I've even forgotten the words now. But it's one of those things that once your self-belief starts coming up and coming out, you start to realise you don't need that validation. You don't need a qualification in something. All you actually need is your own permission to get started. That's all you actually need. These videos that I'm leaving right now, a lot of you know by now that I'm in a little bit of awe that I'm actually doing them myself. And I still have to pinch myself that almost 500 people are now subscribed to the channel. Thank you so much, guys. I actually cannot believe that it's got to that size, especially as it's only been 3 weeks. It's incredible. And the comments you give, the feedback you give. In fact, guys, the comments that you give me and the way that you say you enjoy these videos when I just go off on my random chance like this one that I'm doing right now. And I promise you guys, this was a spontaneous video. I hit record and thought, let's see what happens. Let's put this out there because I want to prove a point that we don't need confirmation. And the confirmation, this is quite a hard one to say, the confirmation that I'm now getting myself is from you guys leaving me good comments, which actually confirms what I'm saying. We don't need confirmation from anybody else who we deem to be better than us or more suitable than us, or who's more educated than us in a certain area, or has got a qualification in something. We don't need people to give us permission to say what it is that we think and how we feel and what it is in life that we believe in. We don't need their permission. And the fact that I do this channel, knowing that I come from a standpoint where I grew up actually thinking I was thick, and now I leave these videos and you guys seem to really enjoy it, there's the confirmation right there. And I wonder how many of you are watching this who are stuck in the dark night of the soul, wondering what you're doing with your life and where you're going, are actually waiting for permission for someone to tell you, hey, you're doing your dark night of the soul correctly. And maybe that is a little bit why you're stuck where you are. As well as all the other normal stuff that goes on with dark night of the soul that we can do. We find ourselves in those dark spots, in those grey areas, those dark areas, and we want to run away from them. And we want to run away from them because they're unfamiliar to us. And we all know that our brain doesn't like unfamiliarity. Our fight or flight senses were there to keep us alive. And although we're not being chased by tigers anymore, our senses will still work. So when it picks up a danger element, and part of the danger element would be an unfamiliarity, as soon as your brain registers an unfamiliarity, it throws up a world of anxiety. And so the same is going to be done whilst you're in the dark night of the soul and things get a bit gloomy and a bit dark. When they get dark, your fight flight kicks in, releases the adrenaline and says, hey, get out of there, get out of there, get away from there. And that's when we could then go and distract ourselves and do other stuff. But in reality, what we should be doing, in my opinion, guys, always my opinion, because it's what I done. I won't say nothing on these videos that I haven't done. What we need to do when those dark times come up is stay in them. Stay in them. Trust yourself. You don't need anyone else's validation. That was the point of explaining all that before. I think that's why some of us have a hard time staying in those areas, because it feels uncomfortable, because it is a little bit scary. That's right. That's how it does feel. And it feels like that for a reason, because it's clearing stuff out. It's getting rid of stuff. So it's taking you and your mind into territories that you probably didn't even know existed. But guys, that is the beauty of the dark night of the soul and having that spiritual awakening. There's many of us that have gone through this, that at the time when we were at our biggest depths, we would have done anything to have maybe gone back to how it was, the naivety of life beforehand when we were chasing after materials. Because at least then at that moment, you're unconscious of this beautiful side of life. You're unconscious of the side of life after a spiritual awakening, but because you're unconscious of it, you don't know it exists. So therefore you're stuck chasing the things that we thought we should chase to have a nice life. So it gave you a sense of purpose while you were in there, and everything is laid on for you. And what I mean by everything is laid on for you is this. It's the system has created the belief in you to chase. It's created the belief in you to chase what it is that you're told creates a great life, the material stuff, the relationships, everything outside will provide you what you need. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And that's what I mean about we need the validation whilst we're in the dark night of the soul to move forward. Is all those things that I've explained, they're all laid on for us. So that's what I was trying to say, sorry. We don't have to be creative whilst we're in there. We think we're being creative whilst we're in there, in the matrix, if you like. We think we're being creative, but we're only being created within the confines of that matrix. When that goes, and this is what the dark night of the soul does, it's like for all those years you've been in a place that you're familiar with, that you know, and that you know, everyone that you love and everything you ever done was in that familiar territory called, let's call it the matrix, was in the matrix. And now you're coming away from that. So you're separating, you're saying goodbye, going through withdrawal symptoms. You're grieving the person and all the people and all the beliefs and all the dreams and all the expectations, just everything you've ever known, you're now leaving behind, and you're going to enter into a new world. You're crossing over, you're transforming into a new world where it's absolutely beautiful. But to get to that beautiful side, you have to go through the pain and the turmoil of separating. And it's during the separation part that we can feel that unfamiliarity of the new life. We don't know what's there. So we kind of question ourselves in the dark night of the soul of, this better be worth it. I hope this is worth it. I hope that guy on the video, I hope Tobe is right when he says this is worth it. It's worth it, guys, trust me. It's at the moment you feel stuck, you feel raw, you feel panicky, because it's unfamiliar on this side to you. And like I said before, unfamiliarity will kick off the adrenaline, will kick off the anxiety that, oh my God, this is so bad. I can't see the end. The end is coming the moment you allow it. And you have to try and relax into the dark night of the soul. You have to try and know that you're exactly where you need to be right now in order for you to then fulfill your full potential at the other side once you come out. I promise you that's where it's headed. You just have to hold the faith in yourself. Start to let go of the fact that maybe you're looking for validation from someone to say, hey, you're doing it right. You're doing things right. Whatever you're doing at the moment in your dark night of the soul, whatever you're doing is what you are meant to be doing. It doesn't need to be marked. It doesn't need to be examined. It doesn't need to be validated by anyone else. What you can do is probably what you're doing now. For those of you guys who have moved through the dark night of the soul can probably really relate to what I'm saying. And those guys who were stuck fast in that hard place, I have total sympathy, by the way, and that hard place of the dark night of the soul where you don't know what you're doing. You're half in the matrix, you're half out the matrix. You don't want to move on through fear, and also you don't know what your path is. You don't want to go back because you've seen what it's all about. You see the lies that you were told as a child and stuff by everything and everyone. Some of those things are done on purpose, and some of those things are from people you love, and they come with a good intention, but that good intention has crippled you. And so it doesn't come from a bad place. That's what I'm trying to say. If you had great parents and that stuff, they can still confine us without them knowing it. But when you kind of start waking up, you see that, and that can be painful. And whilst you're stuck where you're stuck now, it's hard for you to see that there is better times to come. But I absolutely promise you there is. And the better times to come, they will fulfill you like nothing else has done. It's a wonderful place to get to. But it's not somewhere, I just have to say this, it's not somewhere that you need to travel to. It's already in you. It's already in you. You just need to let go of all the beliefs that you have, all the beliefs that you was holding, all the beliefs that everything you've ever known has changed. So just allow it to change. Everything you're ever going to know, I'm not sure if that's a good phrase or not, but I'll leave it there. But everything that you're going to know is unconscious to you, so that's unfamiliar. So it's a real mixture and a confusion, but everything you're going to know is everything that you ever wanted to know, because it's already in you, and you'll start answering those questions. I hope that was good. I think that video was quite good. I'm hoping that was quite interesting, because I can't half remember what most of it was what I said, but I kind of know the gist that I was going at with that, and I think it worked. So it was that was really interesting, because I was sat on my sofa over there, and I thought, I just want to show people that you don't actually need anyone's confirmation. And I wanted to kind of prove that to myself. And in my other video, I said that I really absorbed into the dark night of the soul. And that was the type of little thing that I would do. I know that almost 500 people could potentially watch this. So I thought, right, that's a big challenge. Hit record and see what happens. And so when I put this video out now, we'll see what happens. And if lots of people like it or they comment, that's brilliant. And if they don't, brilliant. I've learned. that don't do them. Maybe try and keep them a bit more scripted and go off topic as you normally do when you're trying to script things. But anyway, guys, I hope that helps some of you. Thank you for the emails. I'm glad you're opening up about this stuff and feeling like you can talk about it. There's no shame in feeling down and crappy and shitty whilst you're in the dark night of the soul. There's no shame in feeling down, crappy and shitty at any time. No, I'm going to have to digress here again now. You poor sods, you do put up with me. But it's one of those things that we kind of feel, this is another thing that I feel like the system produces in us. We feel like we need to be great all the time. And that includes how we feel, the materials we've got, our friendships, everything. Anything less than feeling great, we feel like there's a failure behind that, that something's not right. So maybe something isn't right. Maybe it's just your whole perception of how you see the external world. And maybe your perception of the external world will change once you realise the external world is not really, it's neither here nor there what goes on out there. It's what goes on in here. Your perception of it is what creates the outside. Anyway, I'm going to go because I'll carry on for hours. Right, guys, I love every one of you. Hello, and thank you to all the new subscribers that come along. You can see in these videos, guys, I'm getting a lot more confident with them and stuff. And that, I promise you, is thanks to you guys and your support and your encouragement. I never, ever thought this channel would get to the size it's at now in 3 weeks. It wasn't even something I'd thought about. I thought maybe I would have 300 or 400 subscribers in 6 months. So you guys coming along, honestly, it's made my day, and that's all the confirmation that you need. Right, guys, love every one of you. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Oh, it's very grey here, windy and raining. Not very good today, but it might warm up later. Take care.